The warm-ups for this program are simple. They are 10 minutes long. We do 10 exercises in 10 minutes. Each exercise is done for 1 minute. We start with neck, we go to shoulders, we warm up the core, probably using Spinal Rocks, and then we go to the hips. If your neck works, your shoulders work, your hips work, and your core is on, everything gets better. We are always focusing on making these joints work the best we can in every way, so that it can transfer over to other athletic activities and improve our overall quality of life. If your hip does not work, then you will definitely have back pain. If your shoulder does not work, your hip probably isn't gonna work right, and your core is probably not gonna work right. Focus on these simple movements, do them slow and controlled in the beginning. You can get a little bit faster over time, but we are doing this to warm up the body with smooth, rhythmic movement to drive blood flow and to get the joints all turned on. The brain gets keyed up and everything works properly if we do it in this order. For warm-up number 1, we are gonna start with our neck because we always start with our neck. We're gonna demonstrate 5 reps on each side. When you do this, you should set a timer and do it for a whole solid minute each time. Exercise number 1, we are going to look left and look right. Drive your shoulders down, tuck your tailbone underneath, stand up nice and tall. Look left and look right. Usually people will look one way more effectively than they look the other. There's normally more tension on one side than there is on the other side. Make it nice and smooth. Do not push so far that you hurt your neck, but push just to the edge of discomfort. Over time, you will feel it start to go a little bit further. The point of doing the exercise for a minute is it allows that range of motion to open up and expand. The second drill is to slide our head forward and back. In the modern world, we constantly have our head forward. We are gonna emphasize going back. Slide your head forward as far as you can, lengthen the neck, bring your head back, tuck your chin, keep your eyes level. Head forward, head back. Head forward, head back. Head forward, head back. You will notice this will translate down into your shoulder joints. Make it smooth. Don't push so hard you hurt yourself, but keep the movement going rhythmic and slow for 1 whole minute. Our third warm-up exercise is double overhead circles. This is going to warm up both our shoulder joints and our center of our sternum. Take 2 arms, point them up overhead, lock out your arms. If your arms are bent, you are not doing this correctly yet. Drive up through the arms, pull the shoulders down, draw circles in the sky. Expand and contract the rib cage overhead. You are going to do 30 seconds one direction, and then you're going to do 30 seconds the other direction. You will notice this second direction is probably harder for most people because opening up the rib cage is harder for most people. Do both directions for an equal amount of time, each one for 30 seconds. Exercise number 4 is going to be rolling like a ball. This is a very simple move to get us to engage our core and warm up our hip and back. We are going to start with 2 feet flat on the ground. Lift your spine up, chest towards the sky. From here, push the chest back, round your spine. Rock, sit all the way up. Extend the chest towards the sky. Rock, sit up, rock, sit up, rock, sit up, rock, sit up. Most people are not going to be able to move this lower part of their back in the beginning, and they're gonna make a splat. They're gonna go, ah. If you make that big flapping sound, push back as hard as you can, round the lower back, and make the movement even smaller. Grab your knees with your hands and make it a small rocking movement. This exercise warms up the spine and forces your core to engage. No thwapping sounds. Thwapping sounds are generally bad. If you're making them or if it hurts, go slower. Exercise number 5 is the roll to a leg thread. We build on our roll like a ball, and we are going to start adding in a hip movement, connecting our spine to our hip. Roll like a ball, take one leg, thread it underneath the other, and drive this hip towards the ground. Knee is trying to get to the ground. It does not have to get to the ground. Bring your leg back up, roll like a ball, other side. You will notice one hip is going to be a little bit tighter than the other for most people. Roll like a ball, thread. 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 Doing these two exercises back to back forces you to do a gentle 2 minutes of core engagement. If you want to make it harder, go faster. If you're making thwapping sounds with your spine, go slower. Focus on pushing the lower back until there is no sound in the roll. Exercise number 6 is going to start from this same position. All of these positions will eventually interconnect into more complicated movements. We are going to take our hands, put them behind us, drive our chest up towards the sky, try and straighten out your arms. This is the hard part. Take one knee, try to touch it down to the inside of the other ankle. Touch it all the way down. The goal is to take this hip, sit it all the way down on the ground. That's why we are keeping our hands back. Hands forward would be a different version of the exercise, also very valid, but it will be in a different level. Leg up, one knee down, leg up, one knee down. Sit this hip down into the ground. If you feel your hip pulling apart, you're generally doing it correct. It should be generally uncomfortable for most people. We're doing this basic exercise to try to create space inside the hip joint. Many people, when they start doing this warm-up, will feel like their hip is being pulled out of the socket. If it feels that way, you need to do it slow and controlled so that you can develop that. It means your hip is probably a little bit compressed and you need to create more space. Exercise number 7 is the evolution of the windshield wiper. Our hands are still back. Instead of moving just one hip, we are now going to move both hips. This hip is going to want to lift up towards the sky. Don't let it. Drive it into the ground. If you feel like your hip is being ripped apart, you're probably doing it correct. Hands are behind you. Both legs up, both legs down. Both legs up, both legs down. When you come to the center, drive your chest up towards the sky. Drive both knees towards the ground and try to sit this hip into the ground as hard as you can. Legs up, legs down, legs up, legs down, legs up, legs down. As we warm up our hip, it will warm up our lower back. This is all meant to help you increase the movement ability of your back and your hips at the same time. Exercise number 8 is going to be the child beast down dog. So we are going to start in our child's pose, which is generally hard for most people. You should be lower than me. I've had 3 knee surgeries, so I don't sit all the way down. You should be able to sit all the way down. Lean back in this pose. Don't let your chest stick up so your lower back is arched. Push your rib cage down. Reach 2 hands out in front into our general child's pose. Roll your toes underneath and drive your legs straight. Put your knees back on the ground, roll underneath, sit into child's pose. Toes underneath, drive your heels into the ground, bring them down, and straighten your legs. Roll, press, knee touch, sit back. Roll, press, knee touch, sit back. Exercise number 9 is our Cesa hip extension. We are trying to sit in this pose here. If you are unable to do this, place a yoga block under your hips so you have something to sit on. From here, we are going to drive our hips forward as far as they can go. We are trying to squeeze our glutes at the top. Bring your hips down, sit on a block if you have to, or a book or a pillow. Drive your legs up, try and drive your hips all the way forward. If your hips are back, you have not completed the movement yet. Your glutes should be on at the top. Squeeze them, sit all the way back. Glute squeeze, sit all the way back. Glute squeeze, sit all the way back. Most people in the modern world will think that this is an extreme range of motion. It is not. Everybody should be able to do this range of motion. Start simple, put a block underneath if you have to, and do 1 minute of it. Work on the extension and the glute squeeze. Exercise number 10 is just a plain old bridge. You'll notice we have had a lot of 2 things in a row. 2 neck in a row, shoulder in a row, spinal rocks in a row, 2 hips in a row. Now we have these 2 glute squeezes in a row. Most people have trouble engaging their glutes, so this is here to try and activate them before you get into training. Lie down, feet flat on the ground, knees pointed towards the sky, hands flat on the ground. All we're going to do is spend 1 minute lifting our hips up. We do not want our hip to be dished at the top. Tuck your tailbone underneath, squeeze your glutes. Bring it down as low as you can. Tuck, squeeze, roll, glutes are tight. Bring it down, relax everything, drive up, squeeze the glutes. If your glutes are on and you can actively squeeze them, then you have a good chance of not having lower back pain. If your glutes do not come on, you need to do this training more often. No glute squeeze, your back is definitely going to hurt. Good glute squeeze, you're probably going to remove lots of pain from your life. We're gonna walk through warm-up number 2. Just like warm-up number 1, there are 10 exercises. We are going to instruct each one. When you do this yourself, set a timer for 60 seconds. Do each exercise for 60 seconds. Focus on all the key coaching cues. Our first exercise is look up, look down. We are always starting with our neck because all mammals develop in utero from the spine down out. The cephalodoxal proximal distal trend. We are always starting with our neck and moving down through the body for our warm-up. For exercise number 1, we are just going to look up, look down. Make your shoulders solid. I usually take 2 hands, place them on my chest. That just keeps you from doing weird things with your arms. It's not important. You could do your hands down. We just want your hands someplace so you don't start flailing them about. Hands on your chest. Look up. Make your neck long. When you look down, make your neck long. Do not drop your chin down because that's going to make your head hurt more. Look up, get tall, look down, get tall. When you are doing this yourself, close your teeth in the back. When I close my teeth, I don't try to steal movement from my jaw. If my mouth is open when I look up, my head will go back further because my jaw isn't going with it. It's your body's way of cheating. Closing your teeth at the back and keeping them closed while you look up and look down is a cheat code to make sure you're actually mobilizing your neck. Exercise number 2 is going to be, once again, a neck exercise. We're going to take our head from side to side. We're simply going to look 90 degrees left, look 90 degrees right, back and forth from side to side. Exercise number 2, we are going to look left and look right. Look left 90 degrees, look right 90 degrees. The same thing is true. Close your teeth when you're doing this. The back of the jaw is squeezed gently together. You'll probably look one direction easy and one direction hard. Go slow. Don't crane your neck so hard you hurt yourself. This is supposed to be a warm-up. Each rep should get just a small amount bigger over time. If you do it for a minute, then you will probably get a couple more degrees of movement on each side as you warm up. Exercise number 3 is a double backstroke. 2 arms start down. The goal is to lock our elbow. If our elbows bend while we're doing these movements, then we are stealing movement from the shoulder. Lock out the arms. 2 arms go straight up overhead. Double backstroke. The goal here is just to keep 2 arms straight and keep the hands active. Whether you make fists or spear hands is up to you. If your elbows bend, you are stealing movement and you are not doing the exercise as intended. It doesn't matter how big the circle is as long as the elbows are straight. Over time, they will get bigger and more full. This exercise warms up both the shoulders and the center of the chest. Exercise number 4 is our chest pop shooter exercise. We take our chest, we drive it straight out and forward. Arch your back as hard as you can. Take 2 hands, squeeze them together, make finger guns, push straight back, try and round your spine, straighten out your arms. Chest pop, lift your chest up towards the sky, arch your back as hard as you can, and shooting position, drive your arms straight out in front, round your spine, tuck your hips underneath. Chest pop, straight legs, pull the kneecaps up as hard as you can, drive back, bend the legs, sit down in your hips, round your spine as much as you can. This is a complementary exercise to go with all the spinal rocks in level 1. The next exercise is our air guitar with one arm. This is a front circle in front of our body. This is a flat circle in front of our body. Point 2 feet straight ahead. Get all the movement from every other joint in your body, but don't move your feet. Start with your air guitar as much as you can. Do 30 seconds one direction, change, do 30 seconds the other direction. The goal is to try to keep the elbow locked. If the elbow is bent while you're doing this, you are not maximizing the warm-up for the shoulder. Minute number 6 will be air guitar on the other side. 30 seconds inside towards our center line being defined from the top of the movement, and 30 seconds outside as defined by the top of the movement. This one's pretty simple, but we want to spend a little bit more time on the shoulders in warm-up number 2. Now that we have warmed up the neck, the shoulders, and the center of the spine, we are going to go back down to the ground and do spinal rocks again. Spinal rocks are the easiest way to warm up our core and make sure our spine is in the correct position. Get down to your mat. In level 1, we had rolling like a ball and a leg thread. In level 2, we are going to take our legs, put them out in front. This is the position we're going to try to reach. Reach for your toes. You don't have to get there, but you gotta try. Bend the legs, spinal rock, sit up, straight legs, touch. Rock, straight legs, try to touch. Rock, straight legs, try to touch. If you're making a big thwapping sound with your spine, you need to push your spine back, round your lower back as much as you can. Rock, when you get up, straighten those legs. If you can't reach your toes, just complete the movement by touching somewhere on your shin and try and touch a little bit further forward each rep. Exercise number 8 is going to capitalize on our spinal rock again, and we are going to land in an alternating shin box. Start from the top position. Take 2 legs, drive your hips down towards the ground. The goal is to take this rear hip and drive it into the ground. From here, sit your legs up, spinal rock, feet touch the ground, drop the hip, push the hip, drop the knees, push the hip into the ground. Come back to center. Spinal rock, touch, drive down, center. Spinal rock, touch, drive down, center. Spinal rock, touch, drive down, and center. In the Spinal Rock series, we are trying to engage our core and then connect it to our hip mobility. You don't have to do it perfect, you just have to try to do it for 1 minute each day. Now that we have done our Spinal Rock shin box, we are going to isolate the shin box by itself. 2 hip bones down on the ground, hands are forward today on our knees. Drive your hips down. This is a different exercise than having your hands back. All we're doing is changing the balance point over the hip a little bit each day to force the movement to get better. Hands on your knees, come to center, drive it down. Hands on your knees, come to center, drive it down. Hands on your knees, come to center, drive it down. Over time, you will find yourself probably walking forward as your hips alternate contact with the ground. That is fine. After the exercise, reset back to your comfortable position. The less well your hips move, the further you will walk. The better you get at the exercise, the less you will walk. Exercise number 10 is going to be our shin box extension. Take our legs down to the ground. This one is going to be very hard for most people. Most people are going to have to put a hand on the ground and push into the earth and drive ourselves up. The goal is to get our body straight up and down. Take your hand, put it down on the ground, sit down on the hip. Change to the other side. Hand down, drive up, extend the hip. Sit down. As you get better, you will be able to keep your hands in front of your body. Sit down, switch, drive up, sit down, and switch. Usually in the morning, one hip will not move as well as the other hip. That's fine, build up. Use your hand if you have to. All you have to do is get up off the ground, try to squeeze your glutes for 2 seconds, sit back down, change sides. Warm-up number 3 follows the same formats as warm-up 1 and 2. Start with the neck, go to the shoulders, down to the spine, do some rocks, and then warm up the hips. If your shoulders work, your core is on, and your hips are moving freely, then everything else in your body can start to move towards its fuller potential of movement. Exercise number 1 is our alternating ear lift. We're going to lift our ear up towards the sky. What we are not going to do is bring this ear down towards our shoulder. Think lift the ear up to the sky, make the neck long. We are never trying to make our neck short. We are always trying to make our neck long. So think left ear towards the sky, right ear towards the sky, left ear towards the sky, right ear towards the sky. We do not want to think ear to shoulder. That is not the correct cue that we are using for this exercise. Make your neck longer, not shorter. Exercise number 2 is the front half of a circle. We're going to lift our ear up towards the sky, building on exercise number 1. Bring our chin to our chest, and then lift our ear up towards the sky. Change directions, go back the way you came. Ear up, chin down, ear up. Chin down, ear up, chin down, ear up, chin down, ear up, chin down, ear up. Over the course of a minute, you'll probably get some cracks and pops. Move slow and controlled through the movement. If you're creating pain, move slower or make the range of motion less extreme. Exercise number 3, move to the shoulders, alternating backstroke. Start with 2 hands up towards the sky. Rotate one arm back and bring it all the way back up to the top. Back, bring it back to the top. Back, bring it back to the top. Back, bring it back to the top. The important thing here is that our feet are pointed straight ahead. If your feet are turned out when you're doing this, you're going to notice weird things are going to happen to your knees and the arches of your feet. In order to make sure our knees stay healthy and are prepared for the coming heavy club work, point your feet straight ahead and emphasize the rotation. One arm moves at a time. Eyes track the hand through the movement. Eyes track the hand through the movement. Exercise number 4 is going to come from this kneeling position. We are going to step forward with one leg into what we call a half kneeling position. We are going to drive our hip forward and down as much as we can. Shift your hips back, bring your knee back, shift your weight, step forward. Drive, shift back, pause, step forward. Drive, shift back, pause, step forward. Drive, shift back, and pause. We are working on getting each hip to work equally well. When people do this exercise, often one leg will step out well and the other leg won't want to step out at all. When we do the step out, the goal is to have our knee over our ankle. If our heel is off of the ground in any way, you need to move your foot further forward. Drive it forward, feel a mild stretch in the hip flexor. Step forward. If your heel is off the ground, step further forward, drive that hip down, feel some mobility in the front of that hip. We are not stretching. We are activating the movements by moving to each range of motion. Exercise number 5 is going to be a half Cossack rotation on one side. Take the kneeling position that we just created in the previous exercise, and we are going to take our ankle and we are going to rotate it towards the ground. Ankle is flat on the ground. Roll back up, chest pointed forward. Chest rotates 45 degrees. As the ankle goes down, sit into that lead leg. Sit up, sit down, sit up. We are rotating one of the hips. Do one side for 1 minute, and then the next exercise will be the other side for 1 minute. Have your leg forward, lead heel on the ground. Take that hip, pivot it down. What you're going to notice is it's probably going to feel like your hip is ripping out of the socket. That's definitely what you're trying to do here. You're trying to create space inside the joint. Sit all the way up, sit down as far as you can. The goal is to get that rear ankle all the way on the ground. You're going to feel this hip doing a lot of weird stuff. That's the point. Sit all the way up, chest points forward, 45 degrees, sit down into the movement, feel the stretch in that rear hip. Exercise number 7 is going to be a spinal rock. We are going to do our spinal rock, a leg thread like we had in warm-up number 1, but we are going to add a hip extension to it. If you cannot add the hip extension, just do the spinal rock leg thread. So, spinal rock, leg thread, drive your hip forward as much as you can. We are focusing on this rear hip movement. Sit up and back, bring your hip down to the ground. That's going to be very challenging for most people. Spinal rock, other side. Drive the hip forward, sit down. Spinal rock, drive the hip forward, sit all the way down. Spinal rock, shin box, leg thread, drive the hip forward. We are connecting the core and the rock to our hip with each one of the evolutions of this movement. Exercise number 8 is going to be our alternating Cossack. We have built this movement throughout the warm-up. One leg forward, one leg back. We focused on isolating one hip for this movement. Now we're going to take this and make it even further. This is part of a 4-minute warm-up just for the hips inside of this warm-up. Transition to the other side. Ankle touching the ground, roll our hip forward. 45 degrees with the spine. This is the hard part. If you have to, put your hands on the ground. For now, transition. The knee is going towards the ground. That may be an extreme range of motion for most people. If you can't do this extreme range of motion, go back to just working the hip roll for the duration of this minute. If you can do it, hands on the ground, transition across, knee touch, ankle touch, hip roll. If you can do this without your hands, eventually the goal is to get our thumbs pointed towards the sky, transition across, hip roll. Ankle touches the ground, transition across, hip roll. Exercise number 9 is going to start in our child's pose. 2 hands forward. We are going to do a forward spinal wave. So, starting from our child's pose, push forward like an angry cat. Right here, let your chest lift to the sky and drop your hips down to the ground. Put your chest on the ground, slide your body back. Extend up like a wave crashing. Let the chest pop. Keep your elbows tight to your side. Push all the way back. Extend up. Hips crash forward. Go down. Slide all the way back. When you're sliding back, your elbows will have to touch the ground. When you're sliding back, your elbows will have to touch the ground. Wave forward. Elbows tight. Go all the way down. When you go back, your elbows touch the ground, and then your elbows lift up. Wave forward, crash, elbow touch, elbow lift. Exercise number 10 is going to build on that child pose wave position, and we are just going to do what's known as a bear squat. Most people will find this generally horrible. That's fine. This is a hamstring activation. Starting from our child's pose, roll your toes underneath. Get towards a down dog position, legs straight. From here, try to touch the knees to the ground for a brief second. Straighten your legs out, drive your heels into the ground. Knee touch, straight legs. Knee touch, straight legs. Drive your chest through. Try and put your ears in between your shoulders. Touch, drive, touch, and drive.